quite soon you're going to have robots that can actually work in your warehouse just as well and probably even cheaper and 24/7, 365 instead of humans. It's coming.
Welcome to the Implement AI podcast, the podcast where we explore the impact of AI on your business. I'm Piers, Linney, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. We cover the real-world applications and impact of how AI can be practically applied to drive growth and efficiency in your organization. We cut through the jargon to focus on actionable strategies and use cases to highlight the transformational power of AI. Let's dive into today's conversation.
I'm Piers.
I'm Aalok.
So welcome to the podcast. It's been, I have to say, a crazy couple of weeks of the AI news. Now, we used to do a lot of AI news and we stopped doing that really because there's just so much of it and there's a lot of it around. But I think it's just worth updating a little bit about news and what's going on, and we're going to do that today. We're also going to talk about how long we've been hiring in the business. There's actually a lot going on in our business as well. So we've been hiring. So we're trying to create, we don't just talk the talk, we try and walk the walk. We're trying to create an AI first business. So we're trying to create a business where we have sort of departments or rough departments, because people should be able to do adjacent work now. And we hire somebody, but around them, we want them to build an AI team, don't we?
Exactly. That's the whole point, right? The whole point is like, how can you be as productive as possible, but at the same time also not just productive, like fully leverage all the possibilities that you could do that you couldn't do before, basically.
So that's something when we're sort of hiring people, we're very sort of focused down on their ability to sort of do that and their sort of fascination in AI, clearly. We're also about to start our next round of finance, which is also very exciting. And that's now to scale. So we've done the legwork. We've learned what our customers want. We've built a platform that enables us to deliver that. And that's a question of scaling. So that's it's quite a bit of work going on that front. And as part of that, as I mentioned, we're launching our AIOS. I've been talking about this quite a while. And it's probably taken us, 6 months to build this. And this is just, alpha, beta, whatever you want to call it, but it's very powerful. So we're launching the AIOS, or AI operating system, at our event on the 20th of June. It's all over our social media if you want to know more about it. But we will mention it later in the pod. So today, we're going to do a quick sort of canter through some, not all the news, but some example news to give you an idea about what the hell exponential change actually looks like, because it is tiring, right? So we're going to go through that. And then we're going to have a conversation really about, which is a really important one, about vertical AIs. So an AI does one thing, it answers your emails, it runs a bath, whatever the hell it does. Or horizontal platforms where you can sometimes build like our platform, lots of different agents, or you can create your own workflows using no code and different agents. That can get quite complicated, depends how technical you are. Our platform is not for the technical really, it's for people just to deploy agents very, very quickly. And then what we start with really is what I've called hybrid, which is where you deploy sort of small teams. So you're getting that value of that sort of agentic capability and you deploy them, then over time, you expand those teams into more of a horizontal solution. So we're going to talk a bit about that. We'll talk about Lexi. So Lexi is our own AI support agent. So we're going to talk about her because you can now talk to her. And obviously the best way of getting your head around this technology is just to use it and to engage with it rather than just read about it, right? So we're going to talk about Lexi. And then we're going to talk a bit about some real world use cases. So what we like to do in our podcast is not just talk about AI. We want to sort of show you as far as you can on a podcast what we're doing and what our customers are doing and how they're using it. Let's get into it. So AI news, right? I mean, I literally, we're going to spend 2 hours talking about this, but we're not going to. You'll be glad to hear. So let's just go through a few of the big ones I like. Now, last night, I was playing with, first time I've actually played with it. I've seen it a lot. I was playing with Google Veo 3. Now, if you don't know what this is, right? Aalok and I do a lot of sort of keynotes, presentations, and we're trying to explain to people what does exponential look like. And I've got a slide, right? And it says, I think it's Q1 2023 maybe, or Q2. It's got a video of Will Smith, supposedly, trying to eat spaghetti. And it's flickering, it's changing, it's just rubbish, right? It was a bit of fun, it was quite exciting at the time. You can actually create video of AI, it was amazing. And then I have another slide, another picture, which is where we are. Now that is a tiring bit because almost every time I do a presentation, we have to update it. So the last one I had, it wasn't Will Smith because copyright laws kept caught up, I think. But we had this image of it was a young black guy eating spaghetti, very, very good, HD quality, it looked like a Hollywood film, no audio. So now, VO3, and I'll tell you why it's quite interesting. We'll talk about vibe marketing in a minute. So VO3 is like Hollywood style video content. I mean, last night I was doing, my partner were doing like, I saw it looked like her doing yoga on the beach, with the sun coming down. And I had like a SEAL team coming out of the water, as they do, with the guns pop up and they kind of walk along. It's just insane. It's just spot on. Not only that, it's got the wave noise. It's got the noise of them coming out of the water. So it's now video, Hollywood style video with audio. And I don't just mean sound effects. I mean full speech. And the difficult thing in video is doing speech head on, getting the lip sync right. Yeah, that's hard enough. Doing it at angles is very, very difficult. And it does the whole lot. Have you played with that a lot?
I've not played with it, but I've seen like so many of those videos where it's like, we are just prompts, or we just prompts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do we really exist?
Do we really exist? Exactly. And the quality of the video is quite astounding, I have to say, right? It's quite crazy, like how quickly this whole space has moved. And then I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about like, one person was saying that like, oh, this isn't going to disrupt Hollywood. And the other one was like, I absolutely will, basically, right? Like in any kind of like production, because like they were saying that the average shot of a camera is like 8 to 12 seconds or something like this. And Google Veo produces like 8-second kind of clips, essentially, isn't it? And obviously that's going to change. And obviously that's going to just like, that's like a kind of like a killer use case where people just get excited, and maybe some people want to have their own media on demand. But the bottom line is just solving that use case to kind of turn into hours is going to eat up all the GPUs on the planet. So it just shows that like everybody's like the potential for AI to be in everything, because it just makes everything better. It's just there, isn't it? Right. I often see like podcasts, even shorts and videos on different channels where it's like the babies versions of those people talking, like Joe Rogan as a kid and stuff like this. So like,
funny, aren't they?
So all of this is like extra uses of AI and everything just to kind of create some novelty to it. So I can totally see it changing a lot of stuff. Absolutely.
But let's go on to let's go on the next thing, which is, it's not really news this, but it's kind of relevant to that. Is you've heard of a vibe, maybe you haven't, vibe coding. So when I'm talking about vibe coding is where rather than, coding and you've got some kind of it's sort of software that lets you sort of run the code. You just talk to a computer. You say, right, create these space invaders, and it writes some code and you run it, and it looks okay. It's not perfect. So you say, well, could you make this better? Could you improve that? And it does it. And that's vibe coding. And that's become a bit of a craze. But what's more interesting though is vibe marketing. So vibe marketing now is where you could have an image generator. It can be, I don't know, you could use ChatGPT 4.0, okay, which creates fantastic images. But you talk to it, you press the microphone button and you talk to it. Say, create me an image. It looks like this. I'm trying to do a marketing campaign. Here's the copy. Here's our target audience. This is where we're going to place it. Can create some images that would be relevant or appropriate, and it'll create, 5. So forget A/B testing. You can A to Z test now. Not only that, you can now vibe market with video. So I might try it today, Aalok, actually. I've got a picture of a video of someone saying, hi, I run sales that implement AI, and it's one person, and meet my team. Behind them, there's 200 slightly pixelated AI agents ready to go to work. So that's my job this afternoon. But you get the idea. You can now market with imagery, video, content.
Yeah, I mean, like Zuckerberg already said that like his goal is to basically almost like destroy the need for business owners to create creative. Like he just wants to be like, connect your credit card, tell me who you're trying to target, we'll create the creative, we'll do the thing, like, and it'll just kind of like just go that whole way and kind of do everything that way. But like, absolutely, like the ability to kind of create different types of content is just, it's very interesting. But the key thing here, I should say, is like there'll be a lot of generic stuff made. And it's all about like how well you set up the AI. So like you said at the beginning of what you said, you tell it more about your business, give it examples, give it stuff like this. So this is the point that I've kind of made before, that like now that more people can create, more people will just kind of create kind of average stuff. But if you create like more specific stuff and you've got the details and the nuance of like specific elements of what you're trying to create, you can create much, much better stuff now basically than you could ever before.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out. If you know what you're doing,
but
you can
create some astounding stuff, right? Like absolutely now.
Yeah, competitive advantage in AI is not often the AI, it's knowing how to use it.
Exactly.
It's an instrument, it's a tool, isn't it? So another one which jumped out at me, and again, this is not really relevant to everyone's business, but it's Chinese robot kickboxing. So you might think, why the hell are they talking about that? And the point purely here is we've talked about what does exponential look like? And we've talked about video, for example, which is a great indicator of it. But all of these things, we talk about the PR frontier, a lot of it's kind of PR. You talk about, Google Veo 3. You talk about robots that can do parkour or backflips. Now they can actually have a kickboxing fight. All this PR, this sort of jagged technological frontier is going to become the operational frontier within 6 to 12 months. So at some point, you will be able to, it costs a lot of money because you're going to be using a lot of NVIDIA GPUs. You will pay a couple of £1,000 a month possibly and be able to create, pretty long videos. And quite soon you're going to have robots that they can actually work in your warehouse just as well and probably even cheaper and, 24/7, 365 instead of humans. It's coming. If they can kickbox, they're going to have to stack shelves pretty quickly.
No, absolutely. And like the fact that like they're already kickboxing, they're already doing backflips, I've seen the ones on wheels, for example, like doing stuff on sand dunes or going underwater. Power, the speed, and the kind of price performance ratio is quite astounding. And I think there's going to be like some just incredibly like fast seismic shifts happening in different areas. But like already, like Hollywood is having to reassess what's going on with different things, but also like, areas which operate, people that man things or look at things are going to have to look at things in a different way. And it just reminds me of like, I haven't seen that film I, Robot, right, with Will Smith, but I've seen some clips where basically he's talking to the robot and saying, can a robot, write a piece of poetry which will like, make the world, make, people cry, and can it move, write a regional concerto and does this, and the robot kind of looks at him and goes, can you?
We get that a lot, Bill. We get a lot saying, we do a lot of talks, right? And people say, well, it's only 80% effective. And I think, right, hands up, who has got an 80% effective all the time workforce, and everyone just looks at each other and starts laughing because it's just not the case.
It's just like, like things happen, people don't turn up to stuff, things don't like just all that kind of stuff, right? Like, so I just think that like the capability level of the AIs and the robots is like raising a lot. There's still a lot of complexity in the world, but it's ascending rapidly.
I've got a list here. Let's do MCN last, actually. Let's talk about Johnny Ives. And who Johnny Ive is? He kind of invented or designed the iPhone, essentially. He's a pretty famous designer, one of the world's probably most famous, at least industrial designers. And he had a company that I've never heard of. I think it was called IO, or they've called it IO. And he just sold it to OpenAI for $6.5 billion. So look, we probably need to revisit our evaluation for implementing AI.
Him and Sam co-founded that, right? Like, so that's like a like. So
I didn't know that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is it so? Oh, that's quite sneaky. So someone got some equity in implementing AI by reversing that into it.
I don't think equity for him is a problem, though. Basically, but like,
that's true. So anyway, so the point there is that why is that relevant? So they've got some secret hardware project where they're going to launch something with Sam Altman. And he's pretty good at these things. Thinks is going to be the coolest bit of technology of hardware, at least that's ever existed. So now you're going to have your phone. You're going to have your AR. If you follow Aalok on LinkedIn, you'll see his AR glasses, and then you're going to have some other device. I don't know quite what this is, but what they're saying is that the devices we've got now, they're not really designed to interact with AI, and this one is. So that's going to be very, very interesting. So the hardware's coming, okay? And then the other one, which I've seen we're kind of tracking quite a lot, is computer use. So you probably, I think it was early this year or late last year, Claude, Anthropic launched, they called it computer use. And then ChatGPT, OpenAI launched what they call operator. So this is the ability of an AI to use a mouse and a keyboard. So they're not stuck in a browser even now. They can open applications, they can log into things. We've even got a computer use agent where if there's multi-factor or two-factor authentication and it sends a text message, they've got their own phone number and they can read the text message. So the point here is that like anything else, it was a bit of PR. It was quite novel. Now it's actually starting to work. OpenAI have now, they're now using the reasoning model, O3, with their computer, with operator, which changes the dynamics of that completely. And this is really important because a lot of businesses, and we find this more and more, I'm not going to talk about vertical agents versus hybrid horizontal agent platforms in this podcast, but a lot of companies, don't they? They have a huge amount of manual processing. It's quite hard to see often how technology can do that. So people use robotic process automation, which is very specific and it can break very easily. But now you've got an intelligence that can look at a screen, look at an application, learn or be instructed in how it works, log into things, pick up data, transpose it somewhere else, and that's accelerating action. That's one of our agents think we're sort of looking at deploying.
No, exactly. And I think like there's so many like for example, I was talking to a business yesterday and they were saying that like, they've got many different steps. They've kind of grown quite a lot over the years, but what's happening now is that as they kind of grow revenue more, they just need to add more people because there's just a lot of like processing of steps. And the reason for that is because there's multiple people in the team and there's different teams and everyone needs to be updated. So for an example, when an order comes in, they've got to then put it into 3 different places so that different team members have access to something. And then they've got to be able to like do things and then they can kind of like run analysis on stuff afterwards. But frequently there might be a mistake with what someone's done and then they have to rejig and kind of like go back over it. So in that kind of situation, for example, that's like different pieces of software, different pieces of data, and then the data is being transposed. But then you're also missing the opportunity of like insights on that data, potential connections from that data and stuff like this. So we were talking about like for part of their operations, how like computer use agents could potentially help like with some of the things, as long as it's repeatable stuff, as long as it's the same kind of thing happening over and over again. Like this comes in, these are the different 4 places, this happens like this, update this, download that, done, basically. That can happen. Now, that's going to have a huge and profound impact because there's many people whose jobs are literally moving things from one window to another window, and then you're moving out of one program to another program or researching something in a different place. A different business we're talking to, they do a lot of research. I mean, to be perfectly honest, many businesses do a lot of research, but in a very specific way, where they're looking for signals about something in the market, about specific elements and different things like this. And then from that, they can then find out, who can they target or contact about elements that they can help with. So the point of like finding out like a kind of deal universe, like being able to like understand that as quickly as possible by having almost AI researchers, which will multiply the human researchers. Because they've got some humans that do it already, but you do more. And then the second thing is like, how can you reach out to those as quickly as possible? I was even talking about, having a human in the loop step to kind of review people and check off who doesn't need to be contacted. They're like, no, we just need to contact everyone, basically. So that becomes a competitive advantage because you can then almost scale the people that you were trying to do those things with. And, people are expensive and let me rephrase it. People are good investments as staff members, as long as there's a role which adds value and growth, basically, right? And the problem is that nowadays, many people, like these kind of jobs or some of these jobs, which is basically like moving data from one place to another or doing different things like this.
Somebody shouldn't be doing that. It's just...
Yeah, but people don't want to do this. But also the other thing is like, even if someone is doing it, many people don't want to be doing that, right? They want to be doing something better, basically, right? But the thing is, these kind of technologies can help free someone up because now that person doesn't have to do the time-consuming bit, but they've got the context and the understanding of all those things, basically, right? And that can unlock different things. Like for example, yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody, and then through their intelligence, they actually unlocked a new opportunity in a different area, basically, right? So you want people who have the context of your business, but not tied up with the repetitive.
And the thing with computer use, isn't it, is if you haven't got, God forbid, because if you've got software hasn't got an API, you should get new software. But anyway, if you can't, for some reason, old school practice management system or something, a computer use agent can now log in and operate it and extract the data you might want to extract, ideally to an API. So computer use is going to be, we think, quite important for lots of businesses where there's a lot of manual data transmission going on.
Like so the BPO services and all that kind of stuff, like, that's just like for bigger companies, but for smaller companies where you have like lots of people in your admin team, this could be reduced.
Yeah, so watch this space. Another big news, really, we touched on, I think, maybe last week, is agent to agent, which is kind of Google's thing, but MCN. So this is multi-agent collaboration networks. So this is the way that agents, and across different platforms as well, can now actually communicate. It's not an API. It's slightly different. It's got sort of memory, but it's very easy for them to collaborate. And this is going to be important for us because what we don't want to create, is our platform that's in an island, and it can't talk to Salesforce's platform or other partners talking to like IBM's platform. So if that's really important to us, is that we can connect, because what we don't want to have is this sort of blockage almost. Now, you're closer to this than I am. Just talk us through that.
Well, so basically, like, what's coming up, it started with MCP, for example, like Model Context Protocol, where like there needs to be standards for like how AI talks to different tools, talks to different data, talks to different systems. And that's where that kind of came about. Claude deployed it, a bit like a USB connector, if you want to think about it like that way, where you can connect, to your AI to other stuff, essentially the standard way, and then the same things get kind of transmitted. This is taking it one step further, which is in terms of like how agents can pass off context and also kind of work on it with each other. There's a lot of things that need to be evolved in this space, because like ultimately, like it's not just about like collaborating, it's about who owns the kind of goal of what these agents are trying to do and different stuff like this. There's all sorts of other complexities. Like in our AIOS platform, we've actually got like a whole system which can actually decide, what the goal is, what the different steps are, reflect on whether it happened or not, and different stuff like this. But the thing is, like, this is like very important, because like just like you don't want lots of SaaS softwares that you can't have APIs or things that connect to each other, you also don't want to, you want to have workers that can kind of communicate with each other in different ways. So it's, make it really simple, be able to like share like the full data about something, the full context about something, and the goals and the insights and stuff like that, So there's all these things happening, because just like you've got like, human workers that collaborate with each other, you need to have digital workers that can collaborate with each other as well.
And what's quite interesting, isn't it, is that a lot of the big tech giants, they're kind of agreeing to use MCP, MCA, and A2A, whatever. They're kind of agreeing to use these protocols, which means it makes, they're not trying to sort of bring these kind of wall gardens on it. So that's really exciting. So that's just like literally 1% of the news out there in terms of what's going on. And I think they're all good examples of the hours PR frontier become a technology frontier that actually kind of works, but it's maybe not perfectly quite usable yet, becoming operationally sort of relevant and useful. So we'll come back to news again if there's another couple of weeks like that. So if you're new to our podcast, sign up to, share this obviously, but sign up to our AI Insider. If you read the last week's, we had a framework actually, which helps you kind of understand how to deploy and when to deploy artificial intelligence in your business, especially AI agents who had velocity, value, variability. So we share frameworks like that and a summary of this podcast and other thoughts and insights. But the big news is we're launching our AIOS platform on the 20th of June at our The Future of Your Digital Workforce event. That is in London. It's near Moorgate. It's about midday. If you go onto our LinkedIn or our website, you can find the registration link there. And this is going to be talking about, again, the state of AI as well, but a bit more focus on the practicalities, obviously, of deploying AI, but also kind of talking you through how you would deploy it on a platform like ours, because it's kind of relevant to all agents, really. And it's really important. It's really, really important that if you're listening to this, if you can get down to our event, that you do, because understanding how to magnify your human resource with digital agents is going to be the difference between success and failure in business in the not too distant future, in my view.
Exactly. Like we'll cover like which data streams you got in your business, what happens when you identify them, what it can do, what it will look like, and all that kind of stuff.
So read our white papers. I've got look how to implement AI. We'll talk about Lexi now as well. So share our podcast as well. Now, speak to Lexi. So we have our agents, okay, and we talk about them quite a lot. And often, unless you're one of our customers, you can't actually see them or engage with them. So our agents they have capabilities, skill, just like a person. They've got a sales skill, sales capability. They're set up in a certain way, and that can be customized specifically for your business and how you want to operate. They have tools, so they might be able to make phone calls or access data or use WhatsApp or draft great PDFs, for example. Lots of tools, and we can add tools depending on what you need for your business. And they've got integrations, which is another reason why we can add tools. But they've got over 200 integrations into existing applications. It could be HubSpot, Salesforce, Microsoft. We can add others if needed as well. So you have these agents, but what do they do? What do they look like? So, we are AI first, okay? So on our website, we have Lexi deployed. So if you go to our website and click on services and AI agents, you'll see Lexi. You can request a call. So she then will call you on your mobile, I guess you'll be using in most cases. She'll call you, and her job is set up to engage with you, to demonstrate AI, to qualify leads. So if you're sort of saying, I'm interested in AI, but my business is very small, I'm thinking of starting a business, she'll send you some information and she'll give you the ability to follow up, but she's probably not going to book a meeting. If you say, I've got a budget, I've got 25 people, I want to transform my operations using artificial intelligence, trust me, she'll book a meeting. So she's integrated into our Outlook, our Exchange server, and she'll book a meeting. She's got memory. So if you then call her back, she'll remember your last conversation and the meeting you booked, and she can cancel the meeting and set up another one. She's capturing conversational information. So that's quite really important. Aalok always says that, especially me and Aalok, you talk at hundreds of words a minute, but you type it, 50 maybe, depending how quickly you can type.
25 to 30.
25 to 30. So she's doing all of these things. And that's an opportunity for you to actually engage with and understand how an agent works. That's just one. And that's set up for that specific task. We're going to be looking out for you on Lexi. Oh, I didn't mention, she also shares content. So the minute you've had a conversation with her, she'll email you and then and WhatsApp you a PDF summary of the conversation with some follow-up. That's only an example, so you get a feel for it. But that can be anything. That can be product information. It can be guidance. It can be whatever you want to include in that document. And the beauty of this is that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. I think every e-commerce website will have a Lexi on it because, we've got a couple of customers actually where they get a lot of traffic quite late at night, and you can never afford to have a support, a phone sort of support infrastructure at that time of day. But with Lexi, you can engage with people and share information and converse with them and engage with them 24/7, 365. So our advice is, if you want to know what an AI agent looks like or sounds like, speak to Lexi. Right, let's get on to the main thrust of today, which is this conversation of sort of vertical AI versus horizontal, and let's call it hybrid. So the vertical AIs, let's just spat it out. So vertical AIs are the ones where you have an AI that does email. Okay, I don't quite understand, to be honest with you, why Microsoft and Google, Gmail, haven't done this themselves quite yet. So they can grow very, very quickly. They're raising lots of money potentially. They are aimed at sort of smaller businesses. Some have quite enterprise customers, but it's kind of one use case. But the question then is, when you then want that agent to talk to another agent, or you want to have an agentic workflow, how do you do that? So you can use no-code platforms. You can use different ways of sort of kind of connecting AI agents. But if they're not your agents, that can be quite complicated. And what you don't want, what I call SaaS creep, we've all got lots of software as a service applications. They don't know what half of them do. You only use half of them because they're all trying to compete with the next SaaS, because by adding features and things that you don't really need them to do, but they feel as though they should to expand their market share. So what you don't want is lots of AI agent suppliers that they don't really connect. So then you've got the horizontal platforms, kind of what we're building, which is where you can have multiple agents with multiple capabilities, with multiple access to multiple tools and multiple integrations. They can talk with each other. They can work in teams. They can work in teams horizontally with agents with different skills and tools and access to different data sources, or they can work themselves vertically, actually, where you deploy lots of the same agent in a team, maybe for capacity. And then where we've really started is let's call it hybrid for the purposes of this pod, is where you might have a small team. So it might be one agent, two agents. It might be like Lexi. It might be agents with access to a knowledge base and voice, and she can engage with customers, maybe book a meeting. Quite small, very clear use case.
So analyst ones.
Analyst one's a great one as well. So an analyst agent is to look at your data, analyze, look for something you need to know, you want to know, you actually don't know, and extract that. And then you use it by passing on to different agents. So a small team, a clearer use case, and you deploy that, and eventually you expand. So that's setting it up. So Aalok, let's go through vertical agents then, in your view.
So I think that this is like, if you think back to like a different cycle of like when apps came out, for example, right? And then some apps came out which were like literally just a feature of a different app, if that makes sense, right?
It turned your light on and made it a torch on your phone.
Exactly. Or calculator, for example, right? Those sort of things. These were individual apps first, then Apple put them into their phone, basically. So you don't need a separate app for like the flashlight and stuff like this. The same thing was also like, for video on YouTube, or not video on Twitter, for example. There was like Periscope or different stuff like this, or different elements within there. So the point is, like, at the beginning when there's a vacuum, new things pop up to like solve that area, which is great, which is like where a lot of these kind of vertical AIs are kind of coming out, and they're providing like a great thing. But you're absolutely correct. There's no way that Google already is integrating, Gemini into more and more of its like workspace and different things like this. So obviously the ability to like link in with your docs and link in with your emails already to be able to help with your emails, that's coming as a feature within there basically, right, already. So that's one area. Same thing with Microsoft, other things. So I think you've got to think about things like in terms of what is a new capability that you didn't have before, and then is that going to be a feature of an existing data source and universe that you already use? Or is this a new thing that's going to happen? So, for example, some things like computer use, that's a new thing because it doesn't connect into anything or what anything else is doing in that kind of way. Or if you think about, let's say, having more people on the phone. Again, that's not connecting into something that's going on. That's again a new thing that's kind of being unlocked. Or
But
let's
it's also worth mentioning setup, isn't it? So if you're setting an email agent, it needs to look at emails, decide whether you should respond or not, create a draft, which is, any AI can do that, LLM, and then gives you an option to send it or not. Okay. Whereas the computer use, that's slightly different. So there you're gonna have to have a conversation with, you're gonna have to understand where the data is and what it needs to do.
Exactly. So I think the key thing here with vertical AI is like there's so many like use cases, and I think they work the best in like profession specific or sector specific workflows. So for example, with an architect, like some specific things around the drawings, or let's say in law, specific things around cases and stuff like that. So all of those are fantastic for vertical AIs because you need to have deep domain experience to actually make those things work. And I actually think the winners in those spaces have to be a specialist that only does that thing, basically, right? Like in that kind of way, whether it does a particular type of specialist, calculation or image analysis or combination of workflows, or these three different systems work together in this and it plugs into this industry specific, system. That's where vertical AIs win, basically, right? In that kind of like highly specialized domains in that area. When you're talking about the rest of the operations in a business, you do not want to have 20 different things that are like sitting next to each other and don't communicate with each other, because it's just going to create different frictions and force you to do things in different ways. So I think there's you need both, basically, right? But I think that what you need to kind of think about is for the kind of specialist stuff, you want to use specialist stuff, but for the kind of more general aspects of operations where you're hiring someone, training someone, configuring it, you want to build that in the way and configure that in the way that can actually allow you to scale and unlock more, basically.
Yes, that's the horizontal, right? So obviously, implement AI, we cannot build a horizontal platform. With an agent that can do anything across any business. You can't do it. And that's why we mentioned earlier MCP and MCN. At some point, you're going to have to, we pick our battles, okay? So we think what we've seen over 2 years working with lots of customers, it's opportunities it's the sales growth. It's not in cutting costs or getting rid of people. It's actually growth. So it's sales, support, engagement, customer success, analytics, and we call it operational excellence, which is quite broad. But things like computer use, where you actually want to reduce the friction in your sort of operational back end, that's where we play. Now, we're going to add others, but the point is we're going to have to connect to other platforms or other agents, depending on who owns the task and delivery, depending on what that looks like. But horizontal is kind of, we think, where it's going to go, because you want one throat to choke in terms of support. You don't want lots of different bills. You don't want different support. You don't want them sort of, upgrading at different paces. You want to be sort of sustainable and a relationship.
The other thing you have to also remember is you want to have control over what do you want the actual agent to actually do and how you want it to work. I've got an experience. I remember earlier in my career, we were fitting out commercial property, and we had one point where there was the people who kind of made these kind of interior units that would be going into to be installed, and then there was an electrician that was connecting stuff, and there was one point where basically it required some collaboration or cooperation, but basically the two of them fell out and they kept blaming each other, basically, right? And the bottom line was me as a business owner, my room ain't ready and its stuff isn't working, basically, right? So I see that kind of choke point or that failure point in these kind of systems and stuff like that as well, where you need to make sure that whatever you're trying to kind of get your workforce to do, you've got that kind of ownership and that control over what it does from A to point Z. And then if points, I don't know, from W to Z come from a different system or something like this, you have to understand that if that fails, what's your backup system, or what's the other thing, or what's the different thing. So the thing is, when you're deploying a whole digital workforce, you can do a lot of things you couldn't do before. You can have capacity that you couldn't have. You can follow up with more people. But I'm just saying that when you're kind of architecting and building your system, you want to do it in a kind of Lego way, in a modular way, where you've got options where you can change things out and adapt things. And that's precisely the approach that we recommend and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we never say deploy lots of agents all at once. So say start with what we call use case hero workflow, where they add material value. However, there is managed services. So we provide agents from our platform, which is sort of repeatable, multi-tenanted, but also managed services. And that's slightly different, where end to end, we will look at a process or a workflow, and we will then look at where can that be automated.
Or department.
Yeah, or a whole department, actually, right? Where can that be automated using agents and other technologies?
Agentified.
And where do you need a human in the loop? So we call it agentify. It's Aalok's new word. So we call it agentify. So how do you agentify that? But we will then stand that up, and that can have lots of different agents. If custom agents that we built to deliver that end result, then we'll stand that up and manage it and support it for you. So there is a horizontal play there, which is more what I say is a managed service, a custom workflow, potentially of custom agents that don't exist on our platform yet. It may be that if there's lots of demand for their managed services, we would then replicate that agent on our platform, because clearly there's an opportunity.
One of the main things that's very important and to get to like how to have success with whatever you're trying to do is scoping the agent. So this is one of the main things I do when I have a conversation with somebody. It's like, okay, I want an agent that will do this, this, and this. And when I actually talk to them, I'm like, that's actually 4 different tasks, basically, right? You know, like one might be a research task, one might be an analysis task, one might be like a kind of a data enrichment piece where you go to other systems, and the 4th might be like in terms of scheduling and then contracting or whatever like that, right? So what I always do is I kind of like break down those different bits and explain to them like the different things, and what will give you like faster success and faster wins in your business is like being able to like break these things down into like kind of like specific systems or specific tasks or specific people's roles or specific agents. And then that gives you controllability, because then it means that if this part is new technology which makes it better, you can just swap that box out, put a new one in, and then that's more powerful, basically, right? And then this gives you that kind of control. So when you've got like one, call it super agent, which does lots of different stuff, you become vulnerable, because like as things change or things become brittle, it can become an issue. But like if you approach your kind of digital workforce in this kind of way, and you work with people that can help you scope the agents, that can help you get the most success, basically. Right?
Yeah, you're right. So we try to reduce risk by not really worrying too much about the technology. We have to track it and make sure we're up to date. But we're really aware, as I always say, the technology rubber hits the operational road, actually. All that technology and AI is fantastic and it's very exciting. It is going to change our world. But unless you can implement it, it's kind of pointless. So all of our platforms, all the technology we use, and there's lots of different platforms that we use, are modular. So if something drops the ball or something becomes much better than what we're currently using, we'll swap it out. So you don't have to. Your business doesn't need to worry about what is the latest, I don't know, a transcribe or what's the best one. We worry about that, and we'll swap it out and use the best one. And then the last thing's hybrid, really. So that's kind of where we start. So this is not one agent doing one thing, although you can start there if you want to. It's an agent that has a range of skills, access to those tools. It has those integrations that we help you sort of make sure they works. So Lexi's a great example. As we said, Lexi's one where she has skills. She has tools like voice and WhatsApp, and created a PDF. She has her prompt. She has a personality, and she's integrated into the PDF creator, into our calendar. So lots of different integrations that you're not going to get from one particular vertical agent that does one thing. So that's a great example of kind of land it in your business, learn how it works, take stakeholders that journey with you. Usually people have this like cognitive dissonance, and then you're like, oh, hang on a minute, that's amazing. Then all the lights start going about, oh, well, we could automate this, this, and this. And that's where you start to expand horizontally, but not with lots of different suppliers and lots of different individual agents. Ideally, someone like our platform where you're deploying agents in the most, and our agents reflect where, given the state of the art, where AI agents create the most value, as you might expect. We're not creating agents where no one's ever going to want to use them. We've created some agents where we thought was an opportunity. We realised actually there is one, but it's not enormous. So we've kind of mothballed them for now. So you see that the agents you see on our platform that surface are the ones that we're seeing from literally engaging with customers of all sizes all day, every day. They're the ones that add the most value.
Exactly. And then we've got the agent teams. We've also got like completely configurable agents which can do different things in different ways. But I think that's the key thing here, really. It's like start with certain areas. Typically there's 3 areas: either driving revenue growth, increasing capacity without linearly adding headcount, or offering a new kind of experience, or like a differentiated proposition to the customer that you couldn't do before. They're the 3 vectors, and the solutions for that.
Right, we're about 40 minutes, covered a lot of ground there, but in news, don't forget, have a conversation with Lexi, learn what an AI agent looks like, sounds like, and what the capabilities are. And again, that's like a hybrid. There's a bundle of things going on there. So do try that. Please, if you enjoy this podcast, please help us by getting the word out, share it, give us a review on your podcast platform of choice, download our white paper, sign up for the AI Insider newsletter. It's some great insights and sort of support in there and guidance about how you actually implement and leverage this technology. Follow the pod as well, and we'll see you again in about 2 weeks.
See you then.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Implement AI podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how we can assist you and your business in leveraging AI for growth and efficiency, visit our website at implementai.io. Don't forget to subscribe to the Implement AI podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to stay updated on future episodes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.